All right, everyone, welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 8 recap. That was a little, because I'm just as confused as you guys that I'm on a 6-game winning streak and really just kind of keep knocking people off with what could be considered subpar scores. I'll be the first to admit that I don't know what's going on, but I will take it. Every win is valuable in the league, no matter how it comes about. And yeah, it seems I feel like it's setting me up for heartbreak somewhere down the line. But really, as you know, when it comes down to it, all you got to do every week is win. You just got to win your matchup, is what it comes down to. And the weekly matchups are what make this league, honestly. If we were, I don't think we could ever be like a best ball league or rotisserie league or whatever the other leagues are, where you just go by point totals and things like that. Like, no, this league would not be any. It would not be any fun or interesting, not nearly, without our week-to-week heads-up matchups. I would be fine with doing, like, if I was going to do best ball stuff, I would be fine with that if it was like random people that I don't know in just like some online thing or whatever. But our week-to-week matchups, the heads up every week is one of the most exciting parts of the league. Going against everybody once, sometimes twice every year, and really, again, all you have to do is win. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter if you score 220. Doesn't matter if you score 120. As long as you win your matchup, that's all that matters. But at the end of the day, I'll be the first to admit that my victories have not really instilled fear. In most people, but it keeps happening. People, if you want to call my team trash, but people who have lost. I've beaten people who have later referred to my team as trash. Like, well, if it's that bad, how come you couldn't beat me? But that's neither here nor there. Besides the points, I just popping on here Tuesday night to see we had another trade with Disco. Disco making another trade. That's like 4 or 5 now. He's basically the Philadelphia Eagles from a couple years ago. He's just stacking his team with names, and he's got... Guys, what are you doing? He traded Tank Dell and Brian Thomas. Dell probably going to be... So Diggs is done for the year. He traded them to Gags to replace Diggs. Brian Thomas for Tyreek. All right, so now Disco has A.J. Brown and Tyreek. Let's gotta take a look at... Disco's projection is now in the 170s after this trade. So he's got Tyreek and A.J. Brown. Jacoby Myers now with no Devontae in his way. Brees, Ashan, Njoku, Bijan. Basically, Kareem Hunt on the bench. That's it. You got empty bench spots here. Looks like you're probably gonna fill them up here overnight tonight, because your opponent this week, Kevin, has no quarterback and has used almost all of his transactions. Both quarterbacks that you picked up and traded for have bye weeks this week. And you're going up against the quarterback that you drafted and traded away. You created all sorts of problems for yourself trying to get too cute here. Now you've got two Baltimore wide receivers in your starting lineup. Um, uh, Kevin, just this year has been all over the place. I'm not really sure what to make of it. Uh, but anyway, um, point is, Disco is quietly assembling a super team on paper. We'll see how that pans out over the course of the season. Most of these guys, a lot of them already had their bye weeks. However, we'll see what happens. I've been looking at the Dolphins and stuff like that. You said you acquired Tyreek. I don't like the Dolphins' schedule, especially come fantasy playoff time, which I guess, Disco, you're not really worried about that quite yet. You just want to get there. But yeah, if there's anything that I'm going to be pessimistic about for you, which I know you seem to feel like I'm constantly digging at you and finding finding the things to nitpicking the things that are wrong, pedantic, as you said, perhaps, uh, frustrated that I guess like you don't like getting the attention, the criticism. But if I was going to nitpick anything, it would be that I don't like the Dolphins' schedule come playoff time. So we'll see how that pans out. Otherwise, on paper, you're putting together some good stuff here. It's going to be hard to defeat. Like I said, your projection is almost 175. Yeah, but it is what it is. And I guess that's enough for this. We should talk about the events let's talk about stuff that you guys, I know I feel like it's boring because it's just me here telling you about things that you already know. And so like why do we still do this? I don't know. Sometimes, but anyway, here we are. Week 8 had actually some fairly close matchups. Couple things came down to Monday night, including myself, which we will get into here first, with the 1 versus 2 in the standings. Possum Magic, 6-1, riding high, and he's been in first place pretty much all year, going up against the Wizard of Winber. And in this matchup, it came down to Monday night. Possum had about a 5.5 point lead. I had Tyrone Tracy, the Giants running back, left to go. And the funny part about this was Tracy gets I needed like 5.5 points from him. He must have gotten like 5 because I know that I was like a half a point short from catching up to Possum there. And right before halftime, I was watching the game, and the Giants were driving there, and I think the Steelers must have ran a blitz right up the middle over the center, and Tyrone Tracy gets in there to try to pass block, and I remember just watching him get completely steamrolled, flattened by the pass rush, and I don't know if they got to a sack, but they either got a sack or they forced like a throwaway. Like it happened so bang so fast, and just watched Tracy get smashed. I'm like, oh god. And then of course, like a couple seconds later, minute or two later, looking at my phone, and they're like, Tracy's going to the locker room early for halftime here with the, but I was like, and I'm like, oh my god, you gotta be kidding me! Like he gets to a half a point away, and then he gets hurt. Like seriously? But he was okay. He came out, played the second half. Pretty much right out of the gate in the second half, he had like a 25-yard run, and that pushed me over the top here. Never looked back, and the Wizard of Winber gets the victory. Ends up being a 20-point victory, 165.6 to 145.05. All right. For the Wizard, we got Burrow going for 40, Chase goes for 20.5. JSN 13. Shakir 20. Jordan Mason in perhaps his final appearance before the bye week and potential return of CMC. Re-injures his shoulder, only gets 2 points. Rashad White goes for 15.5. Ferguson 8.5. So Tracy in the flex ended up with 26 points. Fairbairn goes for about 12 point something. And then the Baltimore defense, I believe the total was only, Yahoo says 5. I think it was actually only 8. I talked a little bit about this, that I was feeling pretty confident before Monday night that Tracy was not going to get the points for me, because I was this close, not like this close, to putting Tolbert in my flex there, but right before the Sunday night game, and I literally ran out of time. It locked me out. I was gonna do it. He would have gotten me just enough points. But really, anybody that I would have chosen would have gotten the points that I needed to get the victory, except Freiermuth, but I'm not going to flex Freiermuth. So Tolbert, Judy, Braylon Allen, or Tracy, any of those, even Puka, if I had brought Puka back in, any of those guys would have actually gotten me the points to get the win in this matchup, which is why I was like, that's how fantasy football works. Like, all of these guys, it's happened to me before. Like, the one that I picked will be the one who doesn't reach the point total that I need. Fortunately, I was able to get there and get the victory. For Possum Magic, I was going to say too, I was going to be really upset too if it was, I don't know if anybody watched the Baltimore-Cleveland game, but right towards the end, Jameis Winston threw a pass right to the Baltimore guy. I forget the name. I think it was their safety. Right to him, wide open, hits him right in the hands. He catches it, and he bobbles it, and it drops to the ground. He makes that catch, makes that interception. The game's over. Baltimore can just run the clock out. Very next play, Winston throws that touchdown, and that ended up being like a 12-point swing by that guy not catching the intercept. The interception would have been 3. Less points would have been 3 points for me. Baltimore winning the game instead of losing would have been a 6-point swing there. So yeah, all you had to do would have been a 12-point swing if that guy had just caught the ball to hit him right in the hands. But what can you do? Anyway, all right, we got Purple Rain, Possum Purple Rain Magic. Let's see, Lamar Jackson. Thanks to that extra time, he goes for 50 points. Scary Terry goes for 17.5. Thank goodness he didn't catch that Hail Mary at the end of the game. Demario Douglas, 3.2. Justin Jefferson and the Minnesota defense there on Thursday night felt pretty relieved that this could have been way worse for me. Jefferson went for 19.5. Still, that's pretty good. But as we know, Justin Jefferson's ceiling is about as high as it gets. So I will take that score from him every single time. And fortunately, the Minnesota defense only actually scored, the correct score on Yahoo was 3. After they've been rolling most of the year here. I got to say I got pretty fortunate with that matchup, that Thursday night matchup. Derrick Henry goes for 14.5. Javonte, 9.2. Kincaid goes for 13. Michael Pittman, only 2.5. Siebert, the Commanders kicker, goes for about 11. And again, the Minnesota defense got 3. So yeah, poor performances from both of our, pitiful performances from both of our defenses in this matchup. But yeah, Mason getting hurt could have cost me, but Douglas and Pittman both really let you down in this matchup. And then Tracy was able to come through on Monday night there and pull out the victory for me. However, the standings remain exactly the same with the victory. Wizard moves to 6-2, but remains in second place, while in defeat, Possum Magic drops to 6-2, but boo-hoo, he remains in first place. Should be noted, though, however, while we're on it, the loser of this matchup was going to be eliminated from the knockout pool. And unfortunately, Possum Magic, that means you are eliminated from the pool this week. Leaving, I guess I got to add you to my list here. All right, week 8. Tree. That means who's still left? Jim, Ed, Disco, and me, I believe. Right? Josh, Justin, Gags, Kevin, Zach, Matt, Brian, Tree. Yeah, so we've got still 4 teams left in the knockout pool. Myself, Disco, Jim, Biscuits and Porn, and Ed Lager. Those are the 4 that are left in the knockout pool. Only said week 11, that will be decided. We'll see who can survive. I would much rather have been knocked out a long time ago and not every passing week think, oh, I'm still in it. I still got a chance. But you never know. And again, no one pointed out. No one still has ever won the Tonto's Demise Triple Crown, winning the knockout pool, first place for the regular season, and winning the Tonto Bowl, the Triple Crown. No one has ever done it. We thought maybe Kevin might come close to doing it last year. He won the knockout pool, but then I was able to take first place in the regular season, and he made it to the Tonto Bowl. I guess actually I kind of came close, but I think I got knocked out of the knockout pool pretty early last year, so it wasn't even on the radar pretty quickly. All right, so what do we got? We're just going to run straight down my list here. All right, for some reason, Biscuits is always like second down on my list. This matchup, Disco versus Biscuits and Porn, came down to Monday night. Could Najee Harris have the game of his life? He certainly tried, but he could not quite get there. You needed about 30 from Najee. He got you almost 20. Said couldn't quite get there. Plus, then of course, you guys were playing each other there was the stat correction here. A reception and some yardage went from Mooney over to Bijan for Disco. It was like a 1.5, something like that. But yeah, Biscuits was not able to get the victory. The final score, 202.6 for Disco to 193.8 for Jim Biscuits. Another disappointing high loss with a high score this year. That's a couple times now for Biscuits, at least 2 or 3, where he has put up a score that's going to win most of the time and ran into somebody with a going over 200 here. All right, so what do we got? Disco. Jalen Hurts goes for 53.5. A.J. Brown, 13.5. His Eagles stack there. Brian Thomas, 15. Tank Dell, 13.5. Those guys are no longer on your team, as we said. Ashan goes for 26.5. Brees goes for 10. And Njoku goes for 17. So looks like Winston's going to be feeding him the ball. Bijan goes for 23.5. Tucker goes for 6 or 6 point something. And then the Chargers defense must have gotten like a 9-point bump from 14 to 23. It was enough to get you just over the 200-point barrier this week, Disco. Things after surviving your losing streak there, things are, as I said, it's a long season. You got real upset, a little depressed, had to take that week off. Maybe taking that week off was necessary because, and then I think you guys went back to doing the podcast on Thursday night because you were talking about the Minnesota Rams game there. I'm pretty sure, I mean, I'm no scientist, but I'm pretty sure that the reason for your losing streak was because you guys broke with tradition and started doing the podcasts on Wednesday nights And the fantasy gods were like, no, we don't want any of this. And both of you guys suffered through those 4 or 5 weeks. Hopefully, you've righted the ship. Things are back on a normal schedule here. And you've appeased the fantasy gods. Alright, but again, we said Disco gets the victory. Biscuits with said almost 193, 194. Mahomes goes for 47. Mooney goes for 18.5. Devontae Smith, 20.5. DJ Moore, 5.5. Najee, 19. Gibbs, he had one of the only 2 binks this week. Well, actually, there was 3 because there was 1 there on Monday night. The only offensive bink, 2 of them were kick returns. So Gibbs went for 26.5. Evan Engram, 13.5. Bang Bang goes for 8.5. So Father gets the victory. B. Robinson over B. Robinson Jr. He almost triples up. Jr. there, 8.6. Aubrey, the Dallas kicker, goes for about 5 point something. And your Buns, your Kansas City Buns, Chiefs defense, Yahoo says 14. Looks like you got a pretty significant bump there. Let's see. That would be what, 177? 15 points, maybe, I'm going to guess here. From 14 to 29. Pretty good score. I mean, solid scores up and down. Both of these lineups here. Najee couldn't quite get you enough. He did get over 100 yards. If he had gotten you a touchdown, would have made this one real close. That stat correction there changed things a little bit. You would have liked a little bit more. If you could gotten a little bit more from DJ Moore and Bang Bang Brian Robinson there in that. Well, that game was a defensive struggle if you watched it really. Bears Commanders there, it was tough. Not a lot of scoring going on throughout till the end of the game, I guess. But yeah, just a little things here and there could have gone different for Biscuits and Porn. When you put up a score like that, you expect to get a victory way more often than not. But another heartbreaker for Biscuits and Porn this week. With the victory, Disco moves up to 4-4. He is in 7th place. But with the loss, Biscuits and Porn drops to 4-4, though he is still up there in 5th place. Guess I should mention here that we've got the 4-4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams. We have currently 7 teams at 4-4. All right, what's next? Ed versus Zach. Ed Lager versus No Longer Boomers versus Balls Deep. In case you were curious, for one of the thumbnails for our YouTube channel a couple weeks ago, there was a picture of old people. That was boomers. I Google image searched boomers, and that was one of the first things that came up. So if you were curious, if anyone wasn't sure what was going on there, that was boomers. A photo of boomers. But anyway, a little grudge match here. Ed versus Zach, and after getting all his new toys this week, Zach gets the victory over Ed, 187.65 to 173.55. So despite Zach losing Jordan Love pretty early, I don't know when it was during that game. Enough for him to get 14 completions, 200 yards there, but yeah, despite Balls Deep getting only 20.5 points from his quarterback, Jordan Love there. All right, Dubs goes for 10.2. Cortland Sutton, 18.5. New guys on this team here. Another new one, Marvin Harrison goes for 23. Another one, Josh Jacobs goes for 28.5. Another one, David Montgomery goes for 16. McBride goes for 21.5. Aaron Jones, 11.5. Koo goes for about 6 or 7. And then big one here for you to boost you into victory was the Detroit Lions defense clobbering the Tennessee Titans. Yahoo says 25. Actually, you got. I think. I actually think the Tennessee did pretty good in terms of yardage. So you didn't really get much of a boost from what Yahoo says there, Zach. You did get the bink for a long kick return touchdown. But I actually think you only got like another 3 points there from 25 to 31. Because we only boosted you up, 7 points something there. So yeah, you must have gotten 31. But yeah, more than enough. I'm kind of just touch on this briefly. I'm kind of surprised this wasn't touched upon last week in the podcast when they were talking about all the trades and stuff. That Zach putting a lot of eggs in the Packers offense here. Although I mean, I guess I'm not one to be talking here, having 3 Bengals here in my starting lineup, but we're talking about a quarterback, a wide receiver, and a running back. Also all over pieces of the Packers defense, and then Love gets hurt. Fortunately for you, it didn't cost you there, but just out of that trade, I don't know. I would not be. I would that you wanted to be so not that they're not a bad offense, but to be so heavily invested in the Packers defense in that way. I mean, who would you rather? I mean, you got a better performance this week, so I can't really say anything. Jacobs outperformed Bijan, but who would I rather have of the two of those guys is Bijan, and no little doubt in my mind. Mostly because I would shy away from having such a so many Packers in your lineup. As hypocritical as that sounds, I think you and Brian mentioned it last week in the podcast here. I do not like combining. Said I'm okay with putting Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. Like that's actually a pretty fantasy friendly stack, I think, with a team that doesn't have a very good defense, and basically that is the offense. Fantasy wise, that could definitely be worse. I would not want to be starting like Chase Brown, and I would not want Burrow, Chase, and Chase. Well, Chase and Chase. I would not want to be doing that. I would go out of my way to avoid that kind of situation. But what do I know? If you're happy, you're happy. But I'm just not keen on being so heavy there with your Green Bay Packers. I would much rather still have, if I were you, still have Bijan in your lineup there. But anyway, he gets past Ed, who, as I mentioned in the lineup here, Ed will never, ever, ever, he learned a lesson this week. I hope you learned a lesson this week. Ed will never, ever again bench Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins, I honestly don't know why you did this. They played Tampa Bay, the team he scored 85 points against. They talked about this in the podcast. You're benching, and I thought you were going to put him back in. I can't believe you benched Kirk Cousins, who scored 55 points in this matchup, to Aaron Rodgers, who only scored 36. Not quite, but almost a 20-point difference in a matchup where you lost by 14. You would have won, Ed. You would have won this matchup if you had kept Kirk Cousins in your lineup. But no, you went with the Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams stack. 36.5 for Aaron, 9.5 for Devontae. Zay Flowers goes for 18.5. Chris Olive goes for also about 18.5. Saquon goes for 15. Stevenson goes off for 23.5. 2 touchdowns for him. Hunter Henry, another Patriot in your offense here, 9.5 points. Keenan Allen in the flex, only 6. Matt Gay gets you about 10. And then the Denver Broncos defense. Yahoo says 14. Ed here, looks like your bump was about 12 to 26. Yeah, surprising here. I definitely thought that that the Denver Broncos defense at home against Carolina was going to be a much more significant factor in this matchup. But yeah, 26. Actually, it ended up being the Detroit Lions defense being a big factor here. Both of your defenses did really well. What did it come down to, really? Just solid scores for Zach up and down. And so despite losing his quarterback and only getting 20 points from him, really he got double digits from pretty much everybody up and down his lineup. And you got singles from Devontae, Hunter Henry, and Keenan. And that's basically where the difference came down to. Of course, also, obviously, if you had left Kirk Cousins in your starting lineup where he belongs, Ed, look at me. Ed. Kirk Cousins. It's your boy. Aaron Rodgers. No. Please. No more. Never again. All right. Both of these guys are now 4-4. They are part of the 4-4s. Balls Deep moves up to 4-4. Ed Logger drops to 4-4. And they are right on top of each other. Ed is in 9th place. Zach is in 8th place. All right, what do we got next? Darkwing versus Gags to Riches. Gags, as we all know, started off week 1. Big score, 1st place. Feeling pretty good. And it has been nothing but pain and misery ever since, as he is now on a 7-game losing streak. Darkwing Jet puts him away pretty handily, despite Gags actually putting up a pretty good score this week. Darkwing 219.15 to Gags 171.2. Gags, you would have beat several teams this week with your score. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'd beaten 5 other teams. But just couldn't quite get it done, as you went up against the highest scoring team of the week, which was Darkwing Jet. Josh Allen goes for 45.5. Jaden Reed, 7.5. Worthy, 13.5. CeeDee Lamb on Sunday night pops off for 39.5 points there. 13 catches, 2 touchdowns. Only 4 more yards, and he would have gotten you an extra 3 points for a 150-yard bonus. Couldn't quite get there. But yeah, the Cowboys were down big there. 13, basically everything went to CeeDee Lamb. I know from watching that game, being very frustrated that basically all of Jake Ferguson's receptions were like line of scrimmage dump-offs where he got tackled immediately. It's like, come on. Anyway, this solid performance, solid players up and down Darkwing's lineup here, we got to admit. Mixon and Kyron, his running back combo, both of them go for good scores here. 26.5 for Mixon, 22.5 for Kyron. Cade Otton perhaps looks like he might be the biggest beneficiary of Tampa Bay losing their wide receivers, as he goes off for 9 catches, 2 of them touchdowns, over 29 points this week for Cade Otton. Whoever let him go is probably kicking themselves. Justin picking them up a couple weeks ago. Turning garbage into gold there for you. Another Tampa Bay, Bucky Irving in the flex. He goes for 15.5. Another Tampa Bay kicker. You got the kicker, McLaughlin. He goes for about 9. And then the Jets defense. Yahoo says 5. Justin, we must have bumped you about... You didn't have any binks there. I guess 6 up to 11 points for the Jets defense. Perhaps one of your weak spots there, if you've got one. But it was enough to get the highest score of the week this week, and to knock off Gags and keep the pain rolling here. His Tua Tyreek stack, 45 for Tua, 13.5 for Tyreek, who I should mention is no longer. 2 of his wide receivers are no longer available. Tyreek's traded away. Stephon Diggs, unfortunately, tore his ACL. He got 12.5 points before going down. He's a wide receiver on the wrong side of 30 with a torn ACL midway through the season here. As good and as Stephon Diggs has been, he had that miracle catch with the Vikings, obviously. Some super productive years with Buffalo, now in Houston. But like I just said, tearing your ACL, you're on the wrong side of 30 after all these years in the league. Have we seen the last of Stephon Diggs? Probably not. Have we seen the last of him being a top-tier wide receiver? Probably, unfortunately. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, he's into his 30s, and with the ACL, that's just an unfortunate thing to happen to him. It's going to be tough for him to come back and be what he once was. But none of us are what we once were. Am I right? We all know how it is. Speaking of people who aren't quite what they once were, we got DeAndre Hopkins. Now a Kansas City Chief in his first game. He goes for 5 points. James Conner, 15. Chubb goes for 5. Kyle Pitts, 4 catches, but 2 of them are touchdowns. He goes for 25. Kamara goes for 18. Lutz goes for 4. And your Buffalo defense. Yahoo says 13. Guys, you must have gotten a pretty good bump there. 15, I think. Looks like. Up to 28 for your Buffalo Bills defense. Pretty good. 171. It's a pretty good score. You would have beaten about 5 other teams this week. Overall scoring was up this week for the most part, and it was just kind of dependent on who you got matched up with this week. It was a tough one for a lot of people. Unfortunately, Gags just not able to get it done this week. Darkwing Jet, with the victory, he climbs up to being one of the 4-4s. He is in 6th place, while Gags to Riches is now 1-7. Remains in the basement. He is in 12th place. All right, next up. Speaking of the basement, we got the Dub C Hooligans. After climbing up and out and knocking Gags down there, fell off. He got back on the train a little bit there, but he's fallen off again. Needs to right the ship here. Dub C Hooligans versus Hillbillies on PCP. Hillbillies trying to climb back to 500, and they were able to do it this week. 193.85 to Dub C 155.1. All right, for Hillbillies, he benches C.J. Stroud, Christ Jesus, for the first time possibly ever since acquiring him, your favorite boy. His weapons are being depleted, but you're going to get your Stroud Nico stack here back pretty soon. We'll see what you decide to do. But again, posted a meme there on Sunday. I think it's kind of funny that you decided to wait until Baker Mayfield lost Evans and Godwin to decide to finally start him. I believe he's the number 1 scoring quarterback in the entire league. He's been sitting on your bench for 7 weeks. Just kind of funny that you actually put him in now once he lost his 2 biggest weapons. But man, he's at 37 completions. That's, I know, more than half of the points for Baker Mayfield this week were just from completions. He goes over 300 yards. He scores 63.5. Neighbors goes for 14. Calvin Ridley, we got a Calvin Ridley appearance this week. He catches 10 passes, goes for 22.5. Christian Watson, 8. Jalen Warren, 8. Jonathan Taylor gets over 100 yards and a touchdown, 21.7. Bowers goes for 10.8. Taysom Hill, ye of unrelenting faith in Taysom Hill. You just can't quit that guy, can you, Brian? 7.25 in the flex there. Yeah. I don't know what it is about Taysom Hill, but Brian, you just can't seem to quit him. Him and something about the Saints. Shaheed, you always get him. You can never seem to get enough of him, even though now he's out for the year. Saints defense, I don't know what it is about those couple guys. Boswell kicks a bunch of field goals for you on Monday night, gets you about 12. And the Eagles defense does pretty good against Cincinnati. Yahoo says 13. Looks like we bumped you up about 12 to 25. And it was enough to get past the reeling Dub C hooligans, making all sorts of moves, trying to claw his way to a victory. Mad scientist, sort of throwing things together, seeing what sticks, and not able to do it this week. Stacking his team with 49ers as they're about to head into their bye week. And Kevin, I think we talked about this already. You're playing Disco this coming week, and you got all these guys on bye. You have no quarterback. You're gonna get crushed. It might be the worst defeat in the history of Tonto's Demise. I'm just gonna go out there and say that right now. Predict that that might happen. It just might. Sorry, Kevin. Nothing personal. No disrespect. But the way that you've aligned things this year, and it's just been a whirlwind of I don't even know how to explain it. I can't explain it. But with Disco's stacked roster now and your bye week issues, you got serious. You're basically handing Disco, unintentionally, of course, a victory this week. And like I said, I anticipate it being an extreme blowout. Prove me wrong. Kevin, prove me wrong. I want to see it. But anyway, I think you have like most of your transactions used. You have not much fab left, I think. You got it. I mean, he's becoming. They put Flacco out there. The Colts have handed Flacco in a basket to you, held him out like the body of Christ, said, "Here, Kevin, take this man, make him your starting quarterback this week." He's going to go crazy. But I'm not sure you have the fab to get Joe Flacco into your starting lineup. You're going to get. I assume you're going to go for whoever. You're going to go for whatever you can get. Probably it's going to be Flacco or Winston. But anyway, because you got all these San Fran guys on bye. A lot of these problems you wouldn't have if you hadn't made all these crazy trades. Just saying. Purdy goes for 46.5. Waddle 8.5. Rashad Bateman 3.8. Debo 12.5. Dobbins 17. Chase Brown 11.5. Kittle just under 25. Chuba Hubbard goes for 9. Dicker the kicker goes for about 8. And your Patriots defense, Yahoo says 4. Looks like we bumped you up about 9 to 13. With your kicker there, some field goals there. So yeah, it must have been a 9-point bump there to 13. But yeah, with Hillbillies getting a decent performance there on Monday night from Neighbors, Warren, and Boswell. Mayfield going for 60-something. Basically covering your kicker and most of your receiving core all by himself there. That's not a recipe for victory more often than not, Kevin. And with this victory, like I said, Hillbillies, he moves up to 4-4 and jumps all the way up to 4th place. I believe he is currently the king of 4-4s. And Dub C Hooligans dropped to 2-6, and now they are in 11th place, and nobody to play here in week 9. All right, final matchup. Yinzer Jags versus Shawshank Athletics. This one also came down to Monday night, as I think Yinzer Jags had about a 8 to 10 point lead, but Shawshank had Pickens and the Steelers defense. Steelers defense feasted on Daniel Jones and the New York Giants there. Scored a kick return touchdown, which was an additional bink there. That was the last one of the week. And they pushed Shawshank pretty far ahead, up to like a 30-point margin here. Shawshank gets the victory. He got it well. What did he do? 172.1 to Yinzer Jags, 143.95. All right, for Shawshank, Gino goes for 30. Garrett Wilson, 16.5. Drake London, 7.5. Pickens, 11.5. Pollard, 14.7. Tank goes for 10.5. Kelsey, 25. DeAndre Swift, 22. Butker goes for about 10. And your Steelers defense, Yahoo says 22. Looks like not much of a bump there for you because the Giants actually had a pretty good amount of yardage there. You did get that bink, so I think we bumped you up from 22 to, I think that was it. That must have been the right score. 22 plus the bink then to 25 there, so yeah. But yeah, it was enough to get past Yinzer Jags this week. Jared Goff only goes for 20. Your Goff Amon-Ra Brown stack. Goff just can't seem to win this year. Picking quarterbacks here wouldn't have made a difference what quarterback you used. I guess, although, would Stafford have made a difference? No, you lost by 30. Yeah, it would not have made a difference here. Would have been way closer, way more painful if you had started Stafford. But yeah, Goff goes for 28.5. Amon-Ra, only 2 catches, but one of them is a touchdown in the blowout of Tennessee. 8.5 points there. Cooper Kupp goes for 16. Amari Cooper, 1.3. James Cook, though, your Buffalo Bills, Cook took all the action here. He goes for over 30. 31.5 points there for your 2 Bills. Ken Walker goes for 8.5. Laporta, who was on your bench, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it was up to game time, but at least on Saturday. Another thing that surprised me, I think, in the podcast there, I'm fairly certain you had Kraft in your starting lineup. But they just completely glossed over the fact that you benched Laporta. Although, looking here at your roster, both Laporta and Kraft scored exactly the same, 16.8. So it didn't matter which one you used. But yeah, I was surprised that neither one of them pointed out that you had kicked Laporta to the bench, but you did put him back in there. McMillan goes for 9.2, the new wide receiver there for Tampa Bay, filling in for Evans and Godwin. El McPherson, the most beautiful kicker I've ever seen, goes for about 3-point-something. And your San Fran defense does pretty good against Dallas on Sunday night. Yahoo says 11. Looks like you got a 9-point bump there to 20. But yeah, wasn't quite enough to get past Shawshank, obviously, this week. You said you ended up losing by 30. So Cooper didn't really do anything, but Cook did for you. Would have liked to get, obviously, more from your Goff Brown, St. Brown stack. Didn't get too much there. Yeah, Walker didn't do much. McMillan, really just not a whole lot you could have done, except for hoping for more from the Goff St. Brown stack. Everybody else did okay. not great. But I mean, for the most part, not everybody did great on Shawshank's side here. But Kelsey and Swift led the way, getting the victory there. And with the loss, Yinzer Jags, he is part of the 4-4. He drops to 4-4, and I believe he's the basement of the 4-4s. He is now in 10th place, while Shawshank Athletics, he's not 4-4. He moves up to 5-3, the only team at 5-3, and he is in 3rd place. All right, I think that is everything, right, guys? We covered all the matchups. We got me and Tree, we got Disco, Jim, we did Ed, Zach, Gags, Justin, Brian, Kevin, and Josh, Matt. All right, so again, all right, those are the events of week 8. Just a reminder here, see what we're looking at it here. So it just happened not too long ago. Disco acquires Tyreek for Tank Dell and Brian Thomas. Trading away we'll see what he does. I believe he has a couple free spots in his roster now. Going all in on putting together a super team starting lineup. You better pray that nothing happens to any of those guys, or your bench depth is now practically non-existent. Just it is pointing out a fact here. So we'll see what happens. Don't really sure what to say about it. I'm sure some interesting things will be said about it on the podcast. Surprised, I haven't looked at the lineup here recently. We'll see what happens. I'm sure Detling always has a few things to say, so we'll see what happens there. Maybe it's too late at night for him to be didn't get noticed here. But let's take a quick peek at what we've got here in week 9. Already well past now the half point in the season here. Guys, 8 weeks down, 6 weeks to go. The race to 8, whoever's going to get there, probably make the playoffs here. And again, 7 teams at 4-4. The next few weeks, next 2-3 weeks, going to be big factors here in determining who moves up and who moves down in the playoff race. Let's see, where are all these 4-4 teams? We got anybody playing each other? Yes, we've got Biscuits versus Ed, 2 4-4s. And we got Darkwing versus Yinzer Jags, 2 4-4s. Where else? We got Disco versus Dub C. Disco currently projected to win by about 80 points. So Dub C, you're going to have to do some stuff here. Figure things out just to put a lineup together here for week 9. We got Possum Magic, still in first place. He's gone up against the 3rd place, Shawshank Athletics. That'll be an excellent matchup to watch. Balls deep. Zach gets Gags this week. Your projections are almost exactly the same. So Gags, he's got some newly acquired talent on his team. We'll see what happens, what he's able to do there. So your projections, even though Gags is 1-7, he's been able to put up some decent scores. He's got Tua back. We'll see what he's able to do. Maybe try to upset Balls Deep and drag him down, drag Zach down with you. We got Wizard versus Hillbillies, and Biscuits. That's everything. So yeah, we got 2 matchups that are 4-4s going against each other. That'll have a lot to do with standing and heading toward as we get into the thick of the playoff race here. I get Hillbillies. He's trying to avoid dropping back under 500. The 4-4s going up. Jim versus Ed. Justin versus Detling. Tree versus Josh should be a good matchup. Tree trying to hold on to first place. Is it possible he could lose twice in a row and still? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as long as it's a close matchup, technically Possum Magic could lose this week and still retain first place. That's assuming I also lose, because you would be ahead of me. Then you, me, and Josh would all be 6-3. So yeah, it's possible. It'll be interesting to see that if Tree can lose twice and still remain in first place. He's got about a 65-point advantage on Shawshank right now, and he's got like a 130-point advantage on me. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, it would be kind of funny if you can lose twice and still remain in first place. Just going to point this out to you guys. I know it rubs you all the wrong way. Just want to point out the little, and I'm looking at it on my screen here, a little W6 next to my team name there. Not sure what that means, but I think you guys know what that means. Even though I threatened, I tempted fate by trimming the beard this week. Said I was on my winning streak, wasn't cutting my beard, but I was like, you know what, I can't stand this anymore. And I did it last week, and it almost cost me with Tyler and Tracy there, but fortunately it worked out. I got the lucky Rivers jersey. It's not cursed, and it's not cursed for me at least. I wiped that away. Maybe for the rest of you, maybe for Gags, because Gags wore it. Gags had to wear it after last year, and he wore it at the draft this year. And Gags, look where you are now. You gotta. You gotta get out of this jersey. Give it back at least give it to Kevin. Something here's got to go on. But anyway, all right. Again, that's pretty much everything for week 8. We are rolling right along. We're going to be into November. Halloween's coming up in 2 days. Then we got said we will be on to the month of November. Just a reminder, I don't think that I can set it this way on Yahoo exactly. But as you may recall at the draft, I believe we decided that just to make it easy and everyone remembers, the trade deadline, Thanksgiving. I'll check my notes just to make sure, but obviously there's a couple games on Thanksgiving Day. I think the closest I could do it on Yahoo would be like the Saturday after Thanksgiving, but I'll put it up. I'll check my notes and put it up in the lineup. But I'm pretty sure we decided just to make it easy on everyone, and you never forget the trade deadline, Thanksgiving. That means midnight. Once it becomes Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, trades are over. So just something to keep in mind. You got about 4 more weeks of trades here. It ends. I mean, that's right after week 12, I believe. So you get a couple weeks here. 2 or 3 weeks of regular season. I think 2 before playoffs here, where we cut off the trade deadline. There's been a flurry of action the last week or 2 here. But anyway, just a reminder that the deadline, I believe, is what we decided. Just to make it easy and everyone can remember, Thanksgiving Day is the trade deadline. So even though it might not be that way on Yahoo, just to point that out. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, watching, or whatever it is you do. No more injuries. May everyone's teams meet or exceed expectations. Everyone stays healthy. Everybody has a good time. We all find another reason. We find a new reason to laugh at the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Kevin, I think your dog, right in that box down there, I think your dog just took a shit. I can smell it from here. If you could take care of that. Anyway, I think that's it, guys. So thanks for listening, watching, or whatever it is you do. If there is anybody who actually does this and gets to this point ever in the recaps here. Thanks again, and we will see you back here to recap the events of Week 9. We got some good matchups to watch. Should be fun. And yeah, thanks, guys. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.